Relentless improvement gets you rebooked, referred, and remembered. Your breakthrough is going to come from refining and not recycling. And too many of you are simply recycling, hoping that something will change just by osmosis and because you're willing for it. Without data, you repeat the same patterns, including the ones that are holding you back. Why does the military after-action review actually work? The US Army was actually the first to formalize it because they wanted to ensure that lessons were captured before memory fades. The Defense Force knows that missions aren't won just in the field. They're won in the debrief. That all perspectives matter because blind spots exist at every level. Treat every talk as a prototype. Don't ever take the perspective that you are finished. Every single talk you give is full of intelligence that will actually sharpen your next move. Review it, and you're building a feedback loop that will make you sharper, more bookable, and impossible to ignore. Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Speaker Driven Business Podcast. And I think we're now up to episode 84. And this one, I've actually interrupted normal programming, so to speak, because I want to speak into something that we're seeing evidence over and over and over again, and the value of what we're going to be speaking about today. And that's about the value in reviewing every single talk from so many places. Right now, we are in the midst of the 2025. We're about halfway through the 2025 Paid Speaker Accelerator, which is our signature program once per year, where we help people build their first signature keynote and get them into market. So we're at the halfway point, which means we're actually doing the FSD reviews. And the FSD stands for the first shitty draft, but it's a deliberate naming as well, because we actually need people to bring their first work to the table so we can review it and improve it. But this is a habit that you actually need to keep for the entire span of your speaking career. And it shows up again and again in our programs and our communities. And it actually was only today, before we went to air to record this, that one of our members in the Speak More community was fessing up about having to constantly work on her voice. So not even the language and the structure and the content, which is all the foundations. You don't actually need to worry too much about your voice until you've actually learned how to structure your speeches and your stories and to use language and words of precision to actually really land some content. But she's been speaking for quite some time and has an incredible business behind the speaking. And she fessed up this morning in one of our communities that she actually is always working on her voice moderation. She talked about being quite shouty, the fact that with review and consideration and always thinking about it, she realizes that her voice still sounds sometimes really full on. She comes from the north of England, so sometimes she feels like it can be a little bit harsh, very northern and heavy in accent, quite masculine. But she's constantly working on it. And she nominated the 4 things that she's working on. The first thing is making her voice a little bit quieter so that people actually stop and listen. The second thing is actually slowing down her speaking rate so that her audience can actually take it in and process it. She's also working on making it more melodic, so variations in tone so that it's a pleasant experience for the ears of her audience. And she's learning how to pause for emphasis and thinking time and to reduce the ums and the ahs. One of the things that she recognized was that it takes time and practice and deliberate thought. And she does also comment that sometimes halfway through a pod or a presentation, she finds herself shouting out loud again. But a commitment to herself and actually to the entire community is that she will continue to focus on getting better. Now, this actually reminded me, and this is where my loops go and how my brain works, it actually reminded me of the conversation with Lisa McInnes-Smith. She was our guest professional speaker, incredible, one of the most talented speakers to ever come out of Australia, in episode 68. She is, as I mentioned, one of the most successful speakers, but one of the things that has really stuck with me ever since that conversation is knowing Lisa and knowing her husband, Colin. I know that they pretty well do 100% of travel to her engagements and activities together. Now, number one, they're an incredible duo, an incredible marriage. But actually, one of the things that was revealed in our conversation is that Colin takes notes the whole way through every one of Lisa's presentations and speeches, and has since the day they started this journey together. Then, once the speech is over, even at this time of her career, they'll debrief every single note and nuance together straight after the event. They take note of what landed, what didn't, where they can push for better, what Colin has noted in and around and across the audience, and so much more. They debrief, they review, and they action. And my husband, also a speaker and a certified speaking professional, and a retired Commodore in the Royal Australian Navy, has brought this into everything we do here at any given Tuesday. Because in the military, after every mission or every job or every project or every deployment, no matter how successful, they stop. They gather the team, they ask hard questions, and they debrief before they even pack up their gear most of the time. And why do they do this? Because they know that every mission and every activity has lessons. And if they miss them, those lessons will cost lives. Now, in speaking world, we're usually saving PDFs and not lives, but the principle remains. And it's in conversations with my husband that I've come to learn that in major exercises and deployments, there is actually a dedicated team observing and capturing the lessons learned, or to learn really, in real time along the way. He calls it on the circuit, captured immediately and then debriefed with the entire team. The process in the debrief is also deliberately structured, and it's what we now use across our speaking, our programs, and our events. We review and discuss and then decide what we should sustain, keep, what we improve, and what we need to fix, and sometimes actually delete altogether. And I realized that this is exactly what Lisa and Colin McInnes-Smith do and have done for her entire career. And it's what we all must do. We all should adapt the after action review process from the military and the armed forces. Because in speaking, most of us don't do this. Even though we know that this is a contact sport, even though we know that it is a game of constant iterative improvement, too many of us walk away off stage, smile for the photos, head straight out of the event, maybe to the airport, and don't stop long enough to unpack what really happened. It's why so many speakers plateau. And honestly, it's actually why so many of you fail to properly launch. It's because you think that your learning ends with the applause. And I want to dig into that today. By the end of this episode, I want you to have a clearer understanding of why most speakers hit a ceiling they never break through, how to adapt the military's after action review to speaking, what to measure that actually drives rebookings and referrals, who should and shouldn't be included in your reviews, and how to turn every talk into a stepping stone towards absolute mastery. You see, like everything that is in the public arena, from sports to speaking, elite performance, it's built in the debrief, not just the performance. Several years ago, actually so many years ago now, I had the opportunity to work as the supporting speaker to a global keynote speaker who was in Australia doing a roadshow of 5 events. Most of these rooms had between 150 and 250 people in them, and we were speaking across a number of cities 5 times. The first few, this gentleman, we'll call him Steve because that's actually his name. He actually was like, we'd walk between the breakfast event, which is where I spoke and then he spoke, and then we'd walk the hallways over to a VIP private boardroom event. And all the way for the first 3 events, it was, I don't understand why you're not with me on the American speaking circuit. You should come join me on the American circuit. You're amazing. You're brilliant. And then day 4, we walked into one of those rooms that's just flat. I know that you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I have a facilitator and consultancy background, so I felt that and responded to it. Now, they still loved what I did, but I knew it wasn't my best. And I knew that they hadn't got the best of me, but they didn't know any different and they were happy. But as I came off the stage at the end of the event, I could see Steve standing in the back of the room, literally with one finger up, asking me, drawing me toward him. And this time when he said, let's walk the hallways, he wasn't anywhere near as exuberant. So we did walk the hallways. And he said to me, I now understand why you're not on the major speaking circuit in the US with me. He said, it was a crap room this morning, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, it was. And he said, it was really flat and you felt it. I said, yeah. He said, that's the difference between someone who speaks and a world-class speaker. Your responsibility is not to respond to the energy of the room. Your responsibility is to set the energy of the room. Now, this is advice that I've taken to heart and I share it with everyone I work with. But what I want you to understand here is not so much that piece of advice, but that he gave me something in the debrief that pushed my performance to the elite level. Because as I mentioned, elite performance is built through the debrief, not the performance. And there's no doubt that this speaking arena is a tough arena to truly break through. And in an age driven by the foundations of social media, it can be incredibly brutal at times, which is why I really do get why so many claim to be speakers live in a bubble of polite praise. Clients say, that was amazing, and they mean it. But that's actually not the same as knowing exactly why it worked or where you lost people. We've spoken about it again and again. Good gets you booked once. You're so good actually gets you stuck. But relentless improvement gets you rebooked, referred, and remembered. Your breakthrough is going to come from refining and not recycling. And too many of you are simply recycling, hoping that something will change just by osmosis and because you're willing for it. When we shy away from, or even simply forget in a busy calendar, reviews, we are also bypassing deliberate improvement. Without data, you repeat the same patterns, including the ones that are holding you back. Adrenaline also distorts memory. You remember the highs and you miss the drop-offs. And the truth is in your reviews, not your gut feelings. This is what I want you to take to heart. If you're not doing your own version of after-action reviews, you are leaving money, mastery, and momentum on the table. You might get booked, but you won't dominate. And you may never become sustainable. And this applies to you if you are speaking as a professional speaker to claim expert positioning or simply to grow a business. It doesn't matter. It applies to you. So why does the military after action review work? Let's break it down. Its origins are actually the US Army formalized it first to ensure that lessons are captured before memory fades. And this is the important bit, before memory fades. The reason that they were actually formalized in this way was to provide the opportunity to learn fast, apply fast, and avoid repeating mistakes. The principle of it that created the success was that there was no rank in the room. All perspectives matter because blind spots exist at every level. And this is key, except when it comes to speaking. I've got one waiver for you. So then why does the military after action review actually work? Well, let's look at its origins. The US Army was actually the first to formalize it because they wanted to ensure that lessons were captured before memory fades. That's really key, before memory fades. The reason they created such a formal structure around this was to have a mechanism to learn fast, apply fast, and to avoid repeating mistakes. It was underpinned by the principle that there's no rank in the room, that all perspectives matter because blind spots exist at every level. And this is key to your success with your after action review with one waiver when it comes to speaking. Please make sure that the right people are in the room, that they are coming to you from experience and not opinion. Now, this is how we adapt the after action review for speaking. We lead with 6 core questions for the speaker's after action review. What was supposed to happen is question number 1. So this is your attended impact, the audience transformation you're looking for, the client objectives. The second question is, what actually happened? Where are engagement levels? Were there emotional shifts? What was the timing, the tech, the room dynamics? Number 3, was there a difference? And if there was, why was there a difference? Let's have a look at content fit, delivery choices, unexpected factors, mismatched promises. The fourth question we look at is what worked exceptionally well? Stories, metaphors, audience interactions that hit hard. The fifth question is what will we do differently next time? 1 change to test, 1 win to repeat. And the sixth thing is, and really importantly, what do we need to stop doing? And we also need to be clear on what to look for beyond, was I good? We need to look for engagement markers. Laughter, note-taking, leaning forward, taking photos, whispering to neighbors, staying engaged during transitions. We need to look at the conversion markers, so approaches after immediate emails, online connections within 24 hours, inquiries and testimonials, particularly those ones that are unsolicited. The third area I want you to consider is content resonance. What were the phrases, the metaphors, the stories, the things that people quote back to you and the things that they repeated? And where can you actually refine delivery? Pacing, pausing, stage coverage, vocal range, eye contact, movement in high and low energy moments. All of these things help you to continually refine and iterate. Circling back to my husband again, he delivered a major main stage keynote just earlier this week of recording. And he realized in his after action review that when he got to the Q&A bit, what would have been amazing would have been actually to have got down on the floor and walked the room as the questions were being asked. One of these after action reviews for me was actually watching video, end-to-end video of a new keynote. And I realized that I was so intent on my delivery and the delivery of the message that my face wasn't animated enough. And that might sound a little bit crazy, but you really don't want resting bitch face while you're trying to engage an audience and move them from where they are now to where you want them to be, to where they never expected to be. The resting bitch face is kind of at odds to that. We also need to involve multiple lenses and perspectives to ensure we're as close as possible to the truth in our reviews. So who should come into these? Well, obviously you need to be in them. You need to dedicate the time, and you need to do this straight away before distractions take over. Do a debrief with your client or the organizer. Ask them targeted questions. Not did you like it, but what part got the biggest reaction from your perspective? What have people been speaking about since the event? The third type of person to have involved is a trusted observer, someone in the room who knows your work and can spot the micro shifts, just like Lisa's husband, Colin, or a trusted coach. Never random opinions from friends, please. And then the next bit is the audience data, feedback forms, social posts, post-event comments, informal conversations, hallway conversations. All of these actually come together to create a well-rounded perspective. So then how do we actually embed the SAR, as we're coming to know it, the speaker's after action review, into our speaking practice? The first thing is treat every talk as a prototype. Don't ever take the perspective that you are finished. Build in a 15-minute debrief window post-event before you even check your phone. Keep a running improvement log, wins, changes, and tests for next time. We have a number of clients who are actually running a spreadsheet as well as their notebooks. And review again 48 to 72 hours later with fresh eyes and data and distance. Every single talk you give is full of intelligence that will actually sharpen your next move. If you aren't doing the SAR, the speaker's after action review, you're actually gambling your growth, 100% gambling it. Review it, and you're building a feedback loop that will make you sharper, more bookable, and impossible to ignore. The Defence Force knows that missions aren't won just in the field. They're won in the debrief. It is the same with elite sports. For speakers, it is also the same. Your after-action review is where the breakthroughs will happen. So as we close out today, I want to challenge you to do just one thing. Pick your next talk and commit to an after-action review, and identify in that one win to repeat, one change to test, and one thing to stop. Because your future speaking self is going to thank you for it.